Howdy, 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 Zach Scott here with another quick Source Filmmaker tutorial. Today I'm going to be using particles to show you how to make a cigarette smoke particle. We're going to be using rope particles, which is a type of renderer within the Source Filmmaker, to create a nice floating line of smoke and a couple of sparks that follow it, which we can then attach to a cigarette. I did this because I wanted to make a more unique looking cigarette line, or smoke line that rather left a nice trail through the air as part of my film Survival of the Fittest. Unfortunately, I was messing around with it, and when I had to go to the hospital, I didn't have time to fix it back. So when James thankfully rendered the movie out while I was in the hospital, he rendered it out with the bad smoke effect. But I'm going to show you how to make the good one, which you have not seen, but which I can show you in this older render. So I'm going to quickly play this. So watch the spy's cigarette and watch for the way the smoke comes off of it. It's very subtle, so keep your eyes peeled. So yeah, you see here how we have this very subtle kind of just trace through the air smoke line. So it's not like a giant puff of smoke, but just a really neat, cool, almost Akira-like just smoke trail. Really underplayed and subtle. But yeah, so I'm going to show you how to build that out. So here we go. So first I'm going to jump into my Source Filmmaker cartoon effects particle file, which has a bunch of generic particle effects for like cartoon styled things. I'm going to take a quick look at how I had this set up before, and then I'm going to start rebuilding it from scratch. Somewhere in here it exists. Smoke, smoke, smoke. Smoke, smoke. Smoke, smoke, smoke. Smoke, smoke, smoke. There we go, smoke drag. So this is like what the old default spy or demo man pipe cigarette smoke looks like. Which we're not going to use, but you know, that still looks pretty nice. Kind of looking at some of the iterations I did here as I tweaked through it. So you know, we had a much darker dragon smoke. I had a kind of a thinner version of it. Had some embers as part of it. I had a couple of fast embers. Yep, more embers. I had a kind of smoke rope vertical. Okay, so here's kind of... No, that's not it either. Smoke line copy. There we go. So you can see here's kind of the old good smoke. It's kind of emitting this really thin smoke line. It has a bit of a glow and some you know, embers flying around it at a bit of speed. Some of the embers actually even follow the smoke. But anyway, we're going to start creating a new smoke effect. So create example smoke parent. So first off, I'm going to make create the parent particle, which is not going to have anything in it. It's just going to be a container for our you know, additional children within this particle. So now I'm going to create a new rope particle, which is going to be my smoke. So example smoke line. All right. So in my smoke line, I'm going to set the renderer. So adding a new renderer for rope. So it now has a rope renderer. Nothing's coming out because it's not set to emit anything. So I'm going to go into the emitter and add a continuous emission. Now still you will see nothing coming out because the rope doesn't have anywhere to go. So I'm going to add some movement here. So adding in a movement basic function with a drag upwards of 120. And now we see ropes extending into the heavens. All right, and then eventually it'll run out, I think. But yeah, so first thing we want to do is make this not a giant thick white line. Also, I'm going to increase the potential. That's fine. I'm going to decrease actually the emission rate to 30 from 100. So that it's not quite so exaggerated. And I'm going to go and change this white line to use a different texture. I'm going to do a quick save. And let's see, beam. So I'm going to use the sort of particle that would be used in like an electrical beam here, except, you know, it's not going to be used for that. Yeah, here we go. So generic add, or just generic 01. All right, so that's a little bit more gradiented. It's white. I don't like white, so I'm going to give this a, just to set the color right on the particle itself, to a bit of a gray, so a bit darker gray. Cool. This smoke is going to be coming out of a cigarette, so where it comes out of the cigarette, we're going to want to be having that glow a little bit. So what I'm going to do is set up a color fade operator, and actually I did this in reverse. This needs to start with the glowing color, so the glowing color will be bright orange. Yeah. And then you will fade to be gray. And you will fade over a very short amount of time. So the end time for this fade is going to be 0.1. Yeah, 0.1. So once I have this thinned up a bit, it'll look really nice. So I'm going to go into the system properties and change the size of this again. Right now it's by default set to 5, so I'm going to make this 0.2. 0.2. Yeah, there we go. So now we have a slightly glowing line of smoke that shoots up into the heavens. But that looks a little bit basic, so let's get some movement on it as well. So I'm going to add a couple of things here. First off, I'm going to add a operator, which I like, called, what is it called? Movement match particle velocities. So what this does is this makes all of the particles within this effect move in the same way at the same time. So on its own, it doesn't do a whole lot, but once I add in a force generator for some turbulence, you will see something interesting happen. So turbulence itself is a weird operator. It doesn't seem to do much by default, but that's just because its settings are really low by default. So we have all of these noise amounts. I'm just going to crank these noise scales up. So 50, and then 50, and maybe 200, and maybe 150. So still we're not getting much there, so I'm going to crank up these noise amounts as well. So 20, 20, 20. Yeah, that's giving me a little bit more turbulence. 15, 15, 15. Negative 15. Negative 20, negative 35. And 0.5, 100, 42. Kind of just random numbers here. So now we have some spaghetti strings shooting out. Yeah, it's kind of like a spiderweb, Spider-Man shooting God here. I'm going to knock those back down again. 15, well, 2, 5, 1, 20. And I'm going to pull down the vertical distortion here so it's not quite so up and down. That's still moving a lot more than I want it to. How do I slow this down? 1, 0, 0.2, 0.5, 0.3. Let's turn off that movement match particle velocities. Let's turn that back on. Yeah, so I always have to fiddle around quite a bit with the turbulence numbers because it's a bit tricky. But you know, that looks all right. I'm going to turn off or lower the amount of the rate at which it travels upwards. So 50, 30. Get this smoke a little lazier. 20, 15, and give it a drag of 0.2. Whoa, now that is some wacky smoke. That is cool. I really like that. I'm going to give that a little bit more. It's 30. Cool. I'm going to save that smoke line out because that just looks neato. And once it's moving around and like tracing the hand of the character, it'll look really fancy. But let's continue on. So that smoke's a little bit bright, so I'm going to bring down the opacity of it. So I'm going to blah, 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 blah. I'm going to grab an initializer, which is going to be the alpha random initializer, and I'm going to set the alpha down. If you don't know what the alpha is, it's the amount of transparency that an object has. So I'm going to make that 100 and 100. Cool. So now it's roughly half opacity. You see we're developing these white spots in here. That's because the way the rope emitter works, it's several like sort of short tangents, and as those tangents overlap, we get a little bit of a bright spot. I'm going to deal with that in a minute here, but first I want to give this a bit of fade in and fade out. So operator, and I'm just going to grab the alpha fade in and decay. So fade and decay is nice because once it fades out, it kills the particle. There are sometimes you can have a particle that fades out, but the particle is still alive, which means it still eats into your maximum particle count. So that's why you like to use a decay operator of some sort. So I want to have this fade in and fade out. By default, the fade in time is, well, the start alpha is 1, so I want to make the start alpha 0. I'm going to make the end fade in time, I'm going to make the end fade in time 0.1, so it fades in over a very quick amount of time. And I'm going to make the end fade out time, well, I realize these don't have a lifetime, so I'm going to give them a lifetime real quick. So add a random lifetime of, whoops, add a random lifetime of, I don't know, 4, well, 3.5. Cool, so now they last for about 4 seconds. All right, so now I'm going to give these the end fade out time of 4. So now by 4 seconds, they should all have faded out. Actually, 3.6. Now this should give me a nice fade towards the end here. It's not, though. 2. Why are you sucking? Start fade out time. 2. End fade out time. There we go. Yeah, just leave that end fade out time to be 1. It'll go by the lifetime of the particle, I believe. Anyway, let's fix those white dots. So coming into here, I'm going to go into the render rope. I believe that these dots are based on the amount of subdivisions within this particle. So knocking that down from 3 to 2, or 4 to 2 has already cleared them out quite a bit. Actually, it's cleared them out as much as I need them to be. I'm going to knock that down to 1 just to see what happens. That did a pretty nice job as well. Cool. So I'm going to leave that. I'm pretty happy with that as my smoke. I'm going to add a little bit of a size modifier as well, just so that it grows towards the end a little bit. So that'll be a radius scale particle. Radius scale. So the start size is going to be 0.2, and the end size is going to be 3. So, yeah, now that just kind of grows a little bit towards the end. I'm going to make that 5 even. Yeah, cool. Save that. And that's pretty far along. So, let's get some other things in here. So, when I stick this on a cigarette, it's going to need to have a glowing point on it. So I'm going to create another particle, which is just going to be a basic little glowing point. So creating a new example, smoke glow. This is going to be a different kind of renderer. It's going to be a render animated sprites, though it won't actually be animated. So I'm going to go in here and create this with a glow texture, so glow. And I like a certain one here. It's from Team Fortress. Here we go. No, not glow ball. Excuse me. I might belch here in a second. Gross. Disgusting. Ugh. Man, I cannot explain exactly how painful belching and hiccuping and coughing are right now. It's not fun. Here we go. SC hard glow 0, because you see it like puts quite a bit of pressure on my abdomen, which is where all of my surgery was. So it's just like ripping against just badly healing flesh, blah, 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 and it hurts like a lot. Anyway, let's get this set up. So I'm going to add an emitter here so that we actually see something. So I'm going to make a emit continuously. Ooh, and now we have a big glowing ball. That's way too much. So I'm going to knock this down to maybe 4. So it's only emitting 4. You see how they're stepping in and out. So I'm going to add a quick fade out and fade in. So adding my fade and decay. I'm going to add a lifetime here as well. So adding a lifetime of 0.2.1. Increase that to 15. There we go. Now we have a nice little glowing spot here. Adding a alpha initializer so that it's a little bit more transparent. So 50 and 100. There we go. So I got that. I have, I should do something here. So I need to lock the movement of this somehow. I'm going to pause here for a second. All right. So there's two things we're going to need to do here to make sure that the smoke follows the particle that it's attached to. So first off, I'm going to give this a position within sphere random, but I don't really need to use it for its intended purpose, but I'm going to use it anyway. Position within sphere random. The reason I'm using this is because this will place all of the particles directly at control point 0, which is useful for my next thing because I'm going to add an operator, which then locks the movement of them to control point 0. So now wherever control point 0 is, this glow will follow. So what I can do here is make sure this initializes from control point 0 as well. So position within sphere random. Cool. And now I can go into my example smoke parent, and I can add these two things as children. So adding my example smoke line and my example smoke glow. So now, where I have my particle, there will be a glow and a smoke line. Looking at that, I can probably make the smoke line a bit smaller, or the glow rather a bit smaller. So I'm going to knock that down to a 1. And I can make it a lot dimmer, so I'm going to make that a 15 and 40. So now I have a little bit of a glowing point with a little bit of smoke coming off. Let's get some embers in there too. So I'm going to make one last new particle element, which is example smoke embers. And this is going to be a sprite trail particle. So I'm going to create the sprite trail. I'm going to assign the proper thingy, texture material, which I'm going to use circle, because I use circle a lot. Circle is quite good. It's a circle, and it's in Team Fortress, so everybody has it. Circle, 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 circle. Not circle 4, I want circle. Circle 2, circle 2. All right, circle 2. Let's get an emitter in here. So again, we want things to come out. Emitter. Let's get an initializer. Let's get this to come out of point 0. And we're actually going to give this a little bit of a movement here. So I'm going to give these a max speed of 20. And they'll kind of just go out at 20 in any direction. I'm going to give this a movement basic so that movement works. And ba-boom, now we have an explosion of stuff. That obviously is not the effect we want, though it is pretty weird. So first off, I'm going to knock the color of this down to deep orange, kind of to match the glow there. Sorry, that was a bit of a yawn, also quite painful right now. I'm going to emit fewer than 100, so 5. 15? 9. Cool, so 9 little dots will come out at once. I'm going to add an initializer for a random size here. So random size, size random, radius random. Gonna make these a bit smaller, so 0.3 maximum and 0.1 minimum. So now you can see we have kind of, you know, just lines shooting off everywhere. I'm going to add this to my example smoke particle just to see the scale here. So add example smoke embers. So these embers are still way too big. I'm going to knock them down even smaller. So 0.01, 0.005, 0.1. Cool. I'm going to knock the maximum trail length of these down to 2, 3, 2, 1, 0.3, 0.3. There we go. So they're not quite so big. Embers should fall eventually. So I'm going to give these a gravity of negative, negative 50. 20, 10, negative 10. So these will kind of drift down to the ground after a second here. Save. Let's take a look at what that looks like. So bit lazy there. Actually, I'll make these embers rise. Yeah, that looks better. 25. Ideally, I would make like some embers rise and some embers fall. I don't want these to live super long, so I'm going to give them a short lifetime, 0.05 and 0.2. I'm going to give these a fade again, so adding the alpha fade and decay function. So now you can see they pop off and then die really quickly. So 1. I still think these are coming out a little too fast, so 4. Cool. And embers should have a bit of turbulence. So again, I'm going to go into my force generators and add a turbulence force. So 5, 4, 4, 4. And I'm going to give these 20, 30, 15, negative 20, negative 40, 100, negative 50, negative 20, 100, 500, whoops. And then a whole bunch on the 200s. So now they kind of have some random orientation here. Save this out, example smoke line, whoops, example smoke parent. Now you can see I kind of just have these smoke lines all floating off. I did one other extra cool thing with my effect before, if I can bring it up here. If you just give me 1 second. Which is that I made the embers of the smoke particle actually follow the cigarette. So as you watch them here, they kind of swirl around and move towards the cigarette end itself. I guess I can show you that too. It kind of breaks into material I was going to cover in another tutorial, but we'll do it here as well. So I'm going to grab my example smoke embers and duplicate that to example smoke embers live. So these will be a little bit different because they're going to have mostly the same functions as the main embers, but they're going to have a little bit of extra stuff. So I'm going to add a force generator, which is a pull towards control point. So it's going to be pulling them towards 0 with a fall off power of 0 and a maximum force of 67. 167. Cool. So as you can see here, now they just kind of circle around control point 0 and then float off. So yeah, that's fine. That's simple enough. I'm just going to add that in here. And now example smoke parent, add embers live. And there we go. We have a little bit of a dynamic little smoke line. So let's see what that looks like within our scene here. So I'm just going to switch to source filmmaker. Yeah, ignore this random scene build. It's just the little thing that I've been working on today to just kind of clear out my head. But I'm going to throw down that smoke line here. Add new particle system. Browse. Whoops. Yeah, particles. And let's see, cartoon effects. And I'm going to grab my example smoke line. Parent. Going to set the time for 0 and the emission duration for 100 and 100. Cool. Oh gosh. And nobody cares. So we have our smoke. So I'm just going to grab this and put this on camera somewhere where you can see nicely. Up here. Just in front of the scene. Whoops. There we go. Cool. So now if I turn on particles and we take a look at this. Oh god. Load map. Black void. Oh, there we go. Yeah, all right. So you can see here we have our smoke line right there. So it kind of just emits nicely. If I turn the lights on, it'll lag like crazy, but you can kind of see how it's emitting nicely. Enable lights. And as I move it around even, we get a nice kind of dragging effect here. The stepping that you're seeing there, the kind of jitteriness has to do with how many subdivisions I have on it, so I can very quickly fix that as well. So I'm going to do that real fast. Save. Particle editor. Just going to go into my smoke line, increase the subdivision count to 3 again, which gives me back my dots, so make that 3. Yeah, 2. 5. So it's slightly dirtier, but as I look at it now, it's going to follow a bit better now. But yeah, that's how you make a quick little line-based smoke effect. It's also an intro to rope particles, I guess. Anyway, yeah, I'm gonna go take it easy. You should do that too. I'll post up the particle effect file that I was using here too. It might not work for you. I know it uses a lot of stuff from Dota as well, so if you don't have that installed, it might break. I'm not going to give you support for how to set that up, but if you can make it work, go right ahead and use it for whatever you want. There's quite a few different particles in there that might be useful for you. A lot of stuff from Wrong Floor and a couple of unfinished movies. Things like cartoon explosions and sparks with stars and stuff. Tiny little birds, stuff from Franken-Sandwich, stuff from a movie that you guys haven't seen yet. A little bit of weird, whatever the hell that is. Some fish stuff. Yeah. Anyway, I'll post that up. Take it easy.